This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like, to check you have the tickets in your wallet first before you drive 2 hours to the big game. Seriously, you had one job. Now the closest you'll get to the 50-yard line is parking lot D. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and NIL Game Changers. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
And we get rolling today, brought to you by Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. This is Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15 Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. Ford, Kia, Hyundai, the best in new inventory. I went with Ford. Great pre-owned inventory with the Sunbury Motors guarantee. Terrific service department. I don't care if it's routine, inspections, difficult. They handle it all. At Sunbury Motors, 4th Street in Sunbury. Sunbury Motors Kia, routes 11 and 15. Hummels Wharf, and online at sunburymotors.com. We get rolling today. Nick Farabaugh joins us to talk about the Steelers. Nick, first of all, how have you been? Doing well?
Yeah, doing well. Obviously, the first 2 road games for the season. Some nice traveling to go along with the Steelers' road games, but it's been going quite well.
All right, so it's a team that is 2-0, and there's no such thing as style points in the NFL, right? But they have 1 touchdown and 8 field goals, which means there are a lot of drives that when they score that are ending between the 30 and the 35. This has also been a trend in the league. Is it because of no preseason? Is it because of quarterback play? Or is it something the NFL should be concerned with overall with the trend?
Yeah, the trend, I think it's pretty easy to trace back to. So 2 high coverages obviously take away the explosive passing game.
No doubt.
That, guys like Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert and Joe Burrow and Aaron Rodgers and all these guys just thrived on, right? And so defenses are stopping that. And so they're letting you run the ball. And here's where it kind of gets sticky, I think. Quarterback play isn't what it used to be. The Bradys are gone. Roethlisberger's gone. There's just a lot of top names that aren't playing anymore at quarterback. So you're having decreased quarterback play. A lot of the young guys, you've had a few young guys come through in recent years like Stroud, but you haven't had those superstars significantly. You've seen a lot more busts in recent years than you have success. So that's part of it. Because what it takes to beat cover 2, are those backside concepts. So you got to go through your reads. You got to hit, the third read to hit that coverage. So that's part of it. I think the other part, Steve, is there's just not good offensive line play.
Right.
Defeat things like cover 2 and run those digs and run those, deep seams and run all of this stuff. You got to let the play develop. It's their long developing routes. And the O-line play in the NFL is just not good enough right now to allow those things to develop. Pass rushers are better than ever. Defensive tackles are better than ever. And that's really what it comes down to. That is why right now this league is a low-scoring league. The quarterback play is worse, and the offensive line play is not nearly as good as it should be. And that's why teams are just sitting back in cover 2 and letting them go.
That's one of the best points I've heard is about the offensive line play. I hadn't heard that part before. Other parts I've heard. The officiating part of it, and I brought this up after the Sunday night game. Texans get an interception down the sideline. Great play. Everybody's excited. Bears weren't excited, but the fans in Houston were excited. Oh, there's a pass interference call 30 yards away in the center of the field. That has nothing to do with the play. Nothing. Okay? You're not even looking in that direction. I'm a big believer, Nick, that you only call something that affects the outcome of the play. And to me, you should be holding a flag until you know it affects the outcome. Holding affects the outcome, no question. I got it. Okay? Interference affects it. but not a penalty 30 yards away does not affect the outcome of the play. I think they're too penalty happy so far. I mean, I'm talking about officials. Your thoughts?
Well, I would agree with that. I also think you look at, the ebbs and flows of officiating throughout an NFL season, though, and generally speaking, the NFL, gives these points of emphasis before the season, right? Okay, focus on holding, focus on defensive pass interference or offensive pass interference, whatever it might be. Focus on, the illegal formations. We obviously saw that in week one. Focus on these things early, and I think these refs take these points of emphasis to heart, and sometimes it goes over. They jump the shark a little bit. And I think that's kind of what we've seen. You look at the data throughout, I think, the first 4 weeks of the NFL season, typically it's more penalty happy early in the year, just because these points of emphasis are kind of hit on these referees. And so, yeah, I think they are too penalty happy. I also think that's something that happens every single NFL season. But I think you'll naturally see it recede here the deeper we get into the season. But it's early season football. Just like teams are rusty, referees are also rusty. And so I think that's part of it. But I think the NFL, has had a refereeing problem for a while now. A lot of the rules aren't very clear. These guys aren't full-time officials like they are in other sports, which I think is a significant issue itself. So I would like to see them kind of fix those. So there's a lot of things you can do to rectify this issue, but this is probably more of an early season happening with the inflated number of penalties right now.
Yeah, well, there's another part to it, though. You are not playing your players, for the most part, in the preseason. That's where you make all these penalty calls, where it doesn't matter. But because the players, for the most part, are not playing preseason games, it's showing up in these games, and that's, to me, the domino effect that's causing a problem.
100%. And I think you're also seeing that, with offensive production. I mean, you watched the Steelers Week 1 game, and then you saw what Kirk Cousins and the Falcons looked like against the Eagles. I mean, look at that, right? You're talking about all of these different things, right? Penalties, understanding the points of emphasis, because the teams get the points of emphasis just like the referees do. So they'll practice it, but it's not perfect, right, until you get into a game. And it's the same thing, when we're talking about, the decrease in production, too, just because all these offenses are really rusty. The new on vogue thing is to not play your starters in the preseason, and we're not seeing these guys really get to who they are until, week 5, week 6. And that's a significant thing because, right, you have less practice time than you used to. You have a less preseason game than you used to. So it's all significant, and it all kind of wraps into one conversation. But refereeing, officiating, penalties certainly are a part of that as well.
All right, so now let's get to the actual play itself. The Steelers' defense shut down Atlanta, and I was with a group the other day, and it happened to be with them right when the Steeler game started with Denver, and the Steelers took a 7-0 lead. And I looked at everybody in the room, and I said, I'm not joking here. They have enough points. Well, it turned out they did have enough points. What has made the Steeler defense to this point so good through 2 games?
They're just so dominant up front. I think that's what it is. Steve, you look at their pressure rates and their sack rates. I think they're tops in the league, and they blitz the second least in the league. They aren't winning through blitzing, right? They aren't turning up the pressure on guys. T.J. Watt, Cam Hayward, Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi, Alex Highsmith, throw Nick Herbig in there too, are all just winning one-on-ones. They are dominating up front. These quarterbacks are feeling the heat, and they are making errant decisions, which is also in help taking the secondary to another level. The secondary looks awesome too. The new additions, Deshaun Elliott's playing at a high level. Dante Jackson looks great. Joey Porter Jr. looks like he did last year. Minkah Fitzpatrick is fully back to being Minkah Fitzpatrick. It all has just kind of worked perfectly together. Now, they haven't faced great offenses. The Falcons' offense in Week 2 was drastically different from the Week 1 one. And then, obviously, Bo Nix and the Broncos look like they're deers in the headlights right now. But the Steelers have just had more talent than these teams. And all these guys are making really smart football plays, and they're just winning up front. They are dominating up front. I think right now, they definitely have a contention to me to be the best defensive line in the NFL. I think they do, just pure talent-wise, and they haven't even started blitzing yet. And I think that's a big part of it. So they've been able to scheme up things. They've been able to disguise a lot of stuff. They've been able to do a lot of vanilla stuff. And so this week against the Chargers is going to be a nice test for them, but they haven't even unleashed what their full package is yet, which I think is scary when you think about it.
one of the top preseason acquisitions, I thought, off-season acquisitions, was Patrick Queen. Has there been a domino effect just because of his presence on the field that's helped make some other guys better?
Yeah, it's interesting because Queen hasn't even played that well, but he's done a lot of the dirty work, dirty work that people don't want to do. He's been the green dot. He's been the leader. He gets in there and kind of sticks his nose where people don't want to, and it frees up other guys like Peyton Wilson to make plays. And so I do think you're seeing, the team speed aspect of that too. It's not just Queen, it's Elliott, it's Jackson, it's Wilson, it's all those guys when you're talking about speed. But his addition, to have that sideline speed, to have that leadership ability. The fact he's only 24 years old with all that leadership ability, too, is really, really invaluable to the Steelers. It really is. And so I do think you're seeing some of the domino effect. I think they'd like to see him play better, too. They want to see some splash from him, but everything they've asked him to do is kind of dirty work stuff adjacent to the game right now, so he hasn't really had a lot of opportunity to do splash. You've seen other guys do it, and I think Patrick Queen has freed up a lot of that. And so, yeah, I think he's had a big-time impact on this team already, and that team speed with having that 4-4 speed in the middle, I mean, it is a game-changer for any defense.
Justin Fields hasn't been turning it over through 2 games, big plus. What have been your thoughts on his play and what he's meant to the offense, and also what he hasn't meant to the offense?
I really think he's done something that we didn't know he could do, which is game manage, right? He played so much hero ball, took so many bad sacks, made so many questionable plays in Chicago. The fact that he can do that is really important. The bad sacks are down. He's putting up a career low pressure to sack ratio. It's still not great. I think it's still like 60%. You'd like it to be a little lower, but it's much better than it was. I think it was in like 25 last year. So through 2 games, that's significant. He really hasn't even made a decision this year in the passing game where a ball was almost picked. I can't even think of a play where a guy almost picked the ball. He's been very accurate. His deep ball looks fantastic. He and George Pickens have a great connection going on. I'd like to see the connection with Pat Freiermuth improve a little bit, but Fields has done what they've asked him to do. They haven't asked him to kind of unleash his full skill set, and the Steelers haven't unleashed their full schematics on offense because they really haven't needed to. And so I think that's what he hasn't been. And what he hasn't been is what can he be when he is asked to bear the brunt of the load, right? When he has to make throws over the middle of the field. I think he had 6 passes over the line of scrimmage between the numbers. I think that's like last in the NFL for 2 weeks. I mean, he's not using the middle of the field. So he's really using the sidelines and quick game and then kind of hitting deep shots to Pickens. And so that's really where he's been strong. He's had great accuracy. He's got good pocket presence. He used his legs to extend when needed. He's been a really good player. He's easily been better than what he was in Chicago, and they're getting better play at the quarterback position than they did last year. The question is going to be, though, when they ask him to take on more, when he needs to make the big-time plays, can he? And I don't think we know the answer to that yet. Is he going to turn the ball over when that happens, when he has to play a little hero ball? When we find that out is when we're going to find out just how much Justin Fields has progressed. But he can game manage, and that's something we didn't know. So he's been quite good through 2 weeks to me. If there's problems, there's definitely problems on the offense, but I don't think he's, 1 or 2 certainly in that hierarchy.
Nick, I obviously know the Jim Harbaugh MO personally as to how he wants to play. He's got a quarterback in Herbert. Once he gets to the lead, he wants to ground and pound and just suck the life out of you, is what he wants to do. Does this Charger team, the way it's currently built, and they're 2-0, is that a concern for the Steelers of getting behind this team?
I think it would be. I think they'll be able to stop the run game, and it's a very good run game. They faced this run game before many times in Baltimore because Greg Roman is their offensive coordinator. There is no Lamar Jackson on this team. Justin Herbert can move, but he's not Lamar Jackson. And so when you look at it from that perspective, you think that they'll be able to slow down the run game. There really hasn't been any leaks in the Steelers' run defense. And even though this has been a very explosive offense on the ground for the Chargers, their interior O-line hasn't really played that well. It's been behind Slater. It's been behind Alt. Those 2 guys have been really good. But the interior of the O-line is a big mismatch. Keanu Benton, Cam Hayward, and Larry Ogunjobi should have big games in this one. So that's a significant area to watch. I think Justin Herbert is like the secret weapon they haven't unleashed yet, right? You know, I'm talking about when I talk about the Steelers' defense where they haven't blitzed anybody, they haven't really disguised a lot of things. Well, guess what? Justin Herbert has less than 300 passing yards for 2 weeks. He hasn't been asked to do anything because they've been running the ball for more than 200 yards per game for 2 games. So he doesn't need to do anything. So I think that is significant. We're going to find out more about the secondary, just how good it is. And, you know, if Herbert and this offense start clicking and can put up, 27, 28 points, that's significant because this Chargers defense is really good, and I still think there's issues with the Steelers offense, and I'm not sure they're going to kind of kink out just yet this week. So I definitely think it's a significant issue getting behind. So the Steelers have to stay ahead of the sticks. They have to strike first, strike early, and make sure they're in this game so they can control and play the way they want to.
The Steelers have a great history of outstanding centers. You're looking at the first couple of games of Zach Frazier. What has he meant, at least initially, to the Steelers' offensive line in the middle?
He's meant absolutely everything to them. He has been fantastic. He looks like a phenomenal center. I mean, you look at what he does. He opens lanes in the run game. He's very smart. He's calling out protections already. He's been very steady in pass pro. For a rookie center to be this good, he has shades of Creed Humphrey's rookie season through 2 games so far. I mean, that's how good he has been. So he has meant everything to them. He's clearing lanes for them in the run game. When they run between the tackles, he has been a significant reason why they have been able to get success in that area of the field. And then you kind of look at what he has done in pass pro. The pressures aren't on him. A lot of the pressures come from the tackle position or miscommunications outside of the center position. He's been awesome. The one thing that you can definitely critique him on is some of the quarterback center exchanges that needs to improve. But Zach Frazier's been fantastic for the Steelers early on, and so I think they should be very, very enthused by what they've seen from their rookie.
Nick, do you see a lot of that wrestling background and how he turns and turns guys at the line of scrimmage?
100%. You see it especially in the zone run game. The Steelers run mostly zone stuff. They'll run wide zone. They'll run inside zone. And a lot of that you're asking the center to scoop block, which is to go out and get that nose, that 1 second, that 3 second. You could see him just get under their pads and turn them. Or if guys try to kind of get up under his pads in the pass pro and try to overpower him, he's has great hands. He plays with great leverage, comes off with that flat back. Everything is perfect in terms of technique, and a lot of that is that wrestling background, right? He was a state champion wrestler, actually, in West Virginia. So he is not any shabby wrestler either. So you're definitely seeing that. I think you see the same thing, throughout the team with, like, Keanu Benton on the defensive side. These wrestlers are great offensive linemen most of the time because they understand leverage, and Frazier's a perfect example of it.
Nick, you're outstanding. We always appreciate any time you give us, and thanks a lot. It's been a great start.
Thanks for having me on, Steve. Appreciate it as always.
Anytime. Outstanding Nick Farabaugh joining us on the show. Our high school roundtable's coming up. Then we'll depress the audience. For Matt, it really is, Cotrello, it really is a mixed bag today. The Yankees clinched to get in the playoffs, first team to do so. But the Eagles' performance left something to be desired. This should be a wild segment. Don't you think, Todd?
Sounds like it will be a roller coaster. High highs and low lows.
I think the high highs are going to be very brief. I think he's going to attack the low lows in such a way where he's going to quote like he's speaking for the people.
You're probably not wrong.
Just such a scary dude. All right, back with more in a moment here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Renee, you're up.
Knoebels for 2.
The Phoenix, Twister, Flying Turns.
What are classic coasters?
Right.
Knoebels for 4.
Tiger Tails and Chicken and Waffles.
What are award-winning foods?
Yes.
Knoebels for 10.
Enjoy ride all day passes.
What are September weekends at Knoebels?
What's better than September weekends at Knoebels? A free May weekend at Knoebels. This Saturday, September 21st. Buy one ride all day pass and get one free to use next May. Plan your trip today at Knoebels.com.